In the 1990s, Igor Vovchanchin was a real thunderstorm of ultimate tournaments. One of the few strikers who didn't allow wrestlers to completely absorb the world of martial arts and establish total dominance. He was nicknamed Ice Cold and was considered the unspoken king of the tournaments of 8, and he won 8 of such ones. In this video, I would like to recall the brightest and most spectacular knockouts performed by Igor, both in 8 and beyond, which I posted in a chaotic order. I would like to start with the duel of Igor against Roman Tikonov. It was the final of the 8 Mr. Powerman Sakai that took place back in 1996 in Minsk, Belarus. The beginning of the battle turned out to be extremely neat. The fighters tried the distance and shot with low kicks without forcing events. But then Roman's nerves couldn't stand it and he rushed on Igor. Vovchanchin splendidly met him on the way out and dropped him with one precise blow, ending the fight. And finishing off was no longer needed. A bright victory for Igor, who couldn't do it the other way. Now let's remember the iconic evening of the Giant's humiliation from Vovchanchin. It was the tournament combat in Kiev in 1996, where 3 fighters from America arrived to take part in the tournament. And it looks like all 3 of them were grown somewhere in the secret labs of the KFC, since the smallest of them weighed 264 pounds. Igor's first opponent was a Kung Fu representative, Fred Floyd, who looked very much like the poor man's version of Daniel Cormier and weighed 330 pounds.
То есть я когда их увидел, когда они вылезли с машины, они были одетые в пуховики еще, с плечами в капюшонах, и у них рост по 2 метра. Мне товарищ говорит: Игорь, бросай, откажись, завязывай и убегай оттуда. Но тем не менее, я вышел, все, выиграл, никто не ожидал. Публику завел так, что люди кричали, то есть не своим голосом.
Weighs in 207 pounds against the 340-pound Fred Floyd, who goes right after him. Wow! Fister just flying all over, a knee to the side. Both these.
Fred from the very first seconds flew forward like a train without brakes, but unexpectedly fell under the Vovchanchin's mill and he had to clench to escape from this crazy kickboxer. Fred wasn't ready for the pace of Igor, who competently using footwork tortured the poor giant with sweeping blows that regularly flew right on target.
A 5-time world championship. Men is showing courage and
always hitting me. Oh my God! It's an incredible good movement. He moves and
Igor eventually tortured Fred to death, and at the 14th minute he decided that he had enough and surrendered to the delight of the local public. The first giant was stopped, but in the semi-final Igor faced a hidden threat in the form of the polar bear Paul Valence, who represented his own style of trap fighting.
1996, he himself, 86, no rules fights. Boy, some flaring going on. Igor Vovchanchyn going right at.
Paul precisely collected all the blows that flew towards his head, but he was still going forward and was confident in his style, and that sooner or later he will get Igor.
Section by Igor Vovchanchyn.
Great right hooks, great left hooks, and he's very aggressive.
Already, as we go into over 2 minutes already.
At the 3rd minute, the fight was over as Valence collapsed, and if I didn't miss anything, then he didn't deliver more than 1 accented blow, and all his pressure attempts came down only to receive damage. That same evening in the final, Igor tortured another giant, John Dixon, and became the champion of the tournament of 8, and half a year later he got an offer to fight at UFC 11, but unfortunately due to visa problems and not the best contractual conditions, he never got there. So if things turned out a little differently, Igor's career could take a completely different direction. 8 years have passed and the giants still didn't let up. In 2004, Igor fought Dan Bobbish, who was nicknamed the Bull. It was another big guy, a basic wrestler with a killing blow. And besides, he was Mike Tyson's sparring partner, so the Bull was always ready for a good fight.
Wow, look at Dan standing here, and Igor, I've never seen him look like this. He is ready.
In the first round, the ball took the opponent to the ground, and for Igor, literally not the easiest times came. Dan was a very big and powerful guy, so Igor couldn't throw him off and improve his position. Bull kicked with all his might with his knees, and at the end of the round tried to win by submission. In the second round, it was time for retribution. After an unsuccessful takedown attempt for which Dan spent all his power, he collapsed onto the canvas and waited for all to end. Igor showed humanity and compassion and scored the sufferer on the ground, winning a duel against another giant. In 2004, Igor went to fight against the Japanese pro wrestler Katsuhisa Fujii, who had a negative record, and the fight against Igor clearly didn't predict anything good for his health.
He's coming off a win over Dan Bobbish here in Osaka.
The beginning of the battle. The fighters slow down and shoot. Then Fujii explodes and tries to carry out a takedown, but Igor's defense is at the level, and he counters the Japanese and crushes him with his knees.
Oh, nice right hook and a left, and it's going to be over. Oh,
Right hand that puts
there
him
it
in
is.
canvas. Soccer kicks to the head.
To the knee of the Japanese, Igor responded with a powerful overhand, and then high kick, and it looks like the client is ready. Vovchanchin smelled blood and, catching up with the Japanese at the ropes, drove a control bomb into his head and put an end to it with sockers. Yet another bright and very confident victory from Igor Vovchanchin. And now another fight against another Japanese, Yoshiki Takahashi. This is the average man from Pancrase and was famous for his big heart, but in fights against Vovchanchin, this couldn't always be enough.
You fought Takahashi, right?
Yep, it wasn't him.
Igor delivers a high kick, but Yoshiki defiantly showed that everything is by the plan with him and he wants more, and at the same time he immediately responded with an overhand.
Sensation, who by the way is nice,
that's
and
it.
that's it. That one.
Igor deceived Takahashi by showing his left hand and launched the right bomb, after which the Japanese collapsed and there was no question of finishing off. Another fast and clear sniper shot from Igor Vovchanchin, and I gave this bright knockout the third place on my list. At the Pride 8 tournament, Igor, who hasn't lost for 28 fights in a row, went up against the Brazilian fighter Francisco Bueno, about whom not much is known, except that this fight was only the third for him and he won the previous two.
A more dangerous striker.
By the first minute, there wasn't a single blow from any of the fighters, and then Igor, having pushed the Brazilian into a corner, accurately and very clearly did the same as in the fight with Yoshiki. Plus, while Bueno was in a free fall, he threw a couple more blows. Brazilian, after such a hit, collapsed like a sack of potatoes, and the battle, of course, was over. In the first place, I placed not one fight, but the clash of Igor Vovchanchin and Nick Nutter that took place in the distant 1997. It was the Pancratian World Championship in Israel, in which Nick and Igor fought in the final. Nick was a base wrestler, Ohio State champion, and part of the Mark Coleman's team, who at that time was simply unstoppable. So it was obvious that Nick's tactics would not be much different from what the Hammer showed. Take down and destroy. From the very beginning of the battle, Nick rushed to Igor and carried out a takedown, and then, according to the Coleman scheme, control and strikes. Quite exhausted, Vovchanchin, with the help of the net, managed to get out from under Nick and improve his position a little, and then broke his opponent's nose with his head, and Nutter unexpectedly tapped. That's how Igor Vovchanchin, whom Nick controlled for 25 minutes, managed to turn the course of the fight in his favor and pulled out a victory due to his unbendable spirit.
Повторюсь еще раз, что сила, выносливость, реакция — это не все решает, решает дух. То есть я пролежал все время под ником Натором, он сверху наносил мне удары. То есть, так и не мог сломать мой дух.
In 1998, Igor came to the Vale Tudo World Championship in Brazil, where Nick Nutter turned up as well. As you may have guessed, they both made it to the final to meet in a rematch.
He
midsection there. And
oh my God! Huge knee. Immediately, Nutter charges in and catches a knee right on the button.
It was a knockout at the 14th second of the fight. Igor met Nutter with a powerful knee and added a blow to the back of the head, after which Nick instantly fell asleep. The point was set and the confrontation ended with a triumph of Vovchanchin, and he became the champion of that tournament. And Nick ended his career after this defeat and didn't fight again. His overall record was 5-2, with both losses coming from Vovchanchin, who became an insurmountable barrier for him. That is all for today, my friends. I showed you the brightest and most spectacular knockouts from the legendary Igor Vovchanchin, in my opinion, and I hope you liked this video. If you want to continue, then post the comments what fights could make up the second part. Do not forget about the likes and subscribe to the channel in anticipation of the next releases.